Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carbett, your host, and with me today, once again, is Mr. Matt Germain. How you doing today, Matt?
Excellent, buddy. Always. Yourself?
Man, it's good to have you here, brother. It's a busy week. You know, since San Diego wouldn't have much time for sun if you're in baseball. I don't think anybody's getting out of that building with all the owners and players and agents and reporters trying to cover everything with the winter meetings this week. It's got to be nuts.
Yeah, I think there's owners at the doors actually handing money out as you leave. So it's gotten to that point now.
Oh, well, you know, there's a lot of things we were trying to figure out over time, where some of the free agents would be going, because God knows we had a lot of them. And there's been some big stories, and some things turned out the way people thought they would, others not so much. And well, I'm going to go ahead with the big one now, because I thought we probably wouldn't hear any more about Aaron Judge until after this week. I didn't think we'd be in the middle of spring training, but I didn't think it would be resolved this week about where he would be putting it at number 99. And looks like the pinstripes is still going to be there.
Yep. I think, you know, it's a double-edged sword for them. I think in a way they didn't want to hamstring themselves as much as they ended up having to keep him. But because I think they know that it's heading them down a path that's pretty uncomfortable when it comes to age and the amount of money committed. So when you look at Cole, Stanton, and Judge, I mean, they're all signed through 2028 or beyond, and they're all going to be in their mid-30s during that span. So, you know, you're putting over $108 million a year into three guys that you might have seen the best of them already.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that tell you then? You need to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row behind them. Now, they do have some strength in their system, but their pitching is so paper thin, and it got even thinner during the Rule 5. They got plucked. So I don't know. Pitching wise, they're going to have a hard time filling the spots.
I know, but because the whole deal, if folks didn't know, Mr. Judge walked away with a $360 million 9-year contract. Wow. Love to be taking that home. It's funny. I had the Tommy and Jimmy excerpt we ran a couple episodes ago, and their little calculator came out with $40 million. Yes. Yeah. So they did pretty good. I have to reach out to them a little more in the future. Wow. I mean, that's just a large amount of money. And the little story that's gone around this is really interesting when you think about it, because in his last year with the Yankees, before he became a free agent, I think their offer was somewhere around $230 million. Hey, Mr. Judge, come on, we'll sign you up for a $230 million contract. He says, yeah, let's see how things go. And they went. I mean, this was a fantastic year for any player named Aaron Judge. And man, all that he did, I mean, breaking records, the excitement, the enthusiasm, and God knows when it comes to marketing, the Yankees sold probably more of those 99 jerseys than they ever even begin to think. Cashman and Steinbrenner, you know, Steinbrenner came up and said, well, we're going to pony up the money.
Yeah, he sort of had to. I think, you know, I think they went down the road of the alternative. So they had the meeting with Nimmo. They had the alternatives kind of laid out. And I don't think they liked what they saw.
Yeah.
The potential downfalls were just so steep. They had no choice. But I think the interesting part in all of this, because we know the Yankees will spend if they have to out of their mistakes. But you got to remember, like, they were scarred, and I mean scarred, by the Jacoby Ellsbury deal. They were scarred by the Aaron Hicks deal. And they've seen outfielders in their aging years, and Brett Gardner and the rest of them, dwindle. And I mean, they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars to fill those spots. And you look over in Toronto, and they've got George Springer, and they don't even know what to do with him anymore. They're like, we can't keep him in center. He's going to keep getting hurt. So they're looking for alternatives. And a side note to that, they see Aaron Judge in the year he had and how much it cost the Yankees. They're like, do we extend Vladdy Guerrero now, or do we extend Bo Bichette? Like, it's just going to cost them more and more. And that's when you see the genius of the Alex Anthopoulos and the Eric Neanders of jumping early and betting on those young stud talents. Because if you don't, it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more later on. I mean, the Rays don't they have Wander Franco signed through 2033. It's just insane to think of that. Like, and the star that he can become, and them just having to go, you know what? We have him under control. We have a brand new stadium. We've been in there for 5 years, and now we can actually afford to make him a franchise player for life, right? So it's going to be a pretty special, relationship that they have. And you look at that conversely with the Jays and Vladdy and Bo, and you're like, that's going to be a little bit more tedious. So I think Aaron Judge's year and the contract is a lesson learned for all of Major League Baseball. If you're going to want to keep a player, pay up early, or else it's going to cost you even more later, more than likely. How many times do we talk about career years in the free agent year? Like, it happens all the time. So don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah, the Rays were smart with that and getting Franco early on to go ahead with that extension because, the Yankees could have done better with this. And I do wonder about an aging team. You were talking about Brett Gardner, and I kept watching him those last couple of years and looking over at Aaron Hicks. And I don't know actually the age on that man, but he looked like he was old as far as how he was playing last year. And how handicapped are you? Can you trade those things off, or you just keep saying, well, I'm going to open the wallet more and bring somebody back?
I think that's why the Yankees are so hard, fast focused on Volpe and Peraza and some of the younger players. They want to try to build another core that they can actually build around and have some youth and speed and athleticism in their roster, because they've got so many aging players, and I don't think their fans even realize how old they're getting. Like Donaldson and Rizzo and even Trevino. Like there's no youth in that roster. It's a little scary to look through. And even some of their pitchers are kind of getting thin, and either on IL had Tommy John, or Severino's coming back from his. So you hope he can inject some youth. But I think I look at their roster and I see a lot more downfalls than a roster like the Red Sox, who have some youth coming up through their system that's MLB ready, and should inject a little bit more stability than people think.
Well, that's interesting. You're bringing up Boston too, and I'm thinking about Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah,
he's a free agent, and are they going to keep him? I would think they need to. He's one of the strongest players they have there right now.
Right. And they need to, not just for him, they need to for Devers, because like, if they don't bring back Bogaerts, you might as well say goodbye to Devers too. And if you do that, then where are they? Like, you can't have a roster built around Verdugo and Story. I'm sorry, that's just not going to cut it in the AL East. They're making the schedule more balanced, but it's still not going to help them that much. They made an interesting move though. When they added Kenley Jansen, I think that's I'm not saying he's going to light it up there at his age and everything, but he's going to stabilize the back end of their pen to the point where he's a really good guy. He's willing to share information too. He'll kind of take others under his wing in that pen. I think you're going to see them use their pen more like the Rays do now, where they ask their starters only to go 5 innings. They don't ask for much more than that, and their pen will take over. So they're taking a page out of that instead of trying to go for length. I don't know if they'll bring back Eovaldi, but they definitely have some intriguing talents like Whitlock and Zook, and I think they're better than people give them credit for, is what I guess I'd say. They need a catcher, but other than that, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, the catcher they let go did pretty well when he moved to the Astros, didn't he?
Yeah.
But the thing of it is I'm curious to see what the Red Sox do. They had a year like no other in, I don't know, probably a decade. I can't go down the entire list, but it was a really bad year for them. And a lot was been weighing on Chaim Bloom's shoulders, since he moved and took over all that. When he moved. I'm sorry, Mookie going to the Dodgers. I thought
I think it was him though. You can't blame Chaim for that. That's an ownership issue, saying I'm not paying him. So either you get players for him or we're getting nothing. So, it's sort of like when Alex Anthopoulos went to the Jays. First move he was forced to make by ownership was to trade Roy Halladay. And that was the first move he made. The same thing with Ein Bloom. Like, and once you do that, you're taking the Band-Aid off, so to speak, in one swoop, and then everything else is easier. At that point, you've already dealt the best player in the league. You might as well, you might as well be open to trading anybody at that point. So, I think people are really hard, and they keep bringing the Rays angle into the Chaim Bloom situation. Everybody knows that the ownership in Boston drives who they go after and who they don't go after. It's not really the GM that decides the majority of that. So I think his youth and the fact he came from the Rays kind of plays against him a little bit there. But he'll do well, and I think people will see the potential of their roster maybe mid-season next year.
You looking at the AL East overall, the Orioles, they had a good year. I think they're going to have a better one. I'm not sure what the kind of team they're going to wind up with the money that will be spent on the players. Did
you expect more from them? Like, I know it's not done yet. Like the off season's not over yet, but did you expect them to sign more players than they have in different ones? Like, I don't think Gibson was on my list of guys that I thought they'd go after. It's so meh. I don't know. With the amount of money they have that they're able to spend, they've got over, they're, I think, 115 million below what they normally would spend in a year. So.
Yeah, I know when I saw Gibson's name, the first thing I did was a buddy of mine with the Orioles. I said, "Oh, okay," but take out the phone. Gibson? ? Text. It's like I haven't heard back from him yet, so I don't know that he has any better understanding either. But yeah, I want to see more from them. I mean, obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the Rays here in a minute. But one thing I do want to look at is people that are still outstanding, like you said, Bogaerts is, Dansby Swanson, maybe as far as I know. Cody Bellinger, I think he's going to the Cubs.
Yeah, he's with the Cubs with Taillon. Both of them went there, which is pretty solid ads. I personally would still use Bellinger at first base. I think he's an accident waiting to happen in the outfield. He keeps getting hurt. So, and he did so much better as a first baseman at the plate. So just put him at first. Like, they've got young guys in Chicago that are really intriguing outfielders. Cam Nero is one. Brennan Davis, and they've got Ian Happ. That's a solid outfielder. Like, let the young guys run the outfield and put Bellinger at first. Nothing wrong with that at all.
One player who I love to watch, and he's joining a friend of his, I guess, on the Phillies. That's Mr. Trea Turner.
Yeah.
And if we look side by side with Trea and Bryce, I think they're both over $300 million with their contract. So there's a team that's willing to make a commitment.
But the Phillies did it smart. They got two guys at length, so that their average annual value is actually fairly low compared to the regular stars. And when you look at those two, they have the pedigree, they have the attractiveness of other free agents being drawn there now because those two that are there, and they have such different styles that they complement each other very well. So Turner's a great speed guy, top of the lineup. They both chew a lot of pitches. So when the pitcher is going up against them, it makes the lineup so much tougher to have to go through both those guys. Then you added Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber, both do the same thing. All of a sudden, the Phillies are just going to chew apart starters very early on in games. So I like what they're doing. And Alec Baum now, it just becomes that guy with no pressure on him, and he can grow into his own being, right? So that'll help him out. I don't know if they hang on to Rhys Hoskins long-term or not, but depending on what his demands are, you put JT Realmuto in there, and man, they're going to be strong for a while. They're not going anywhere unless their pitching doesn't hold up.
Yeah, when I look at that lineup and the names that you were saying, it's like, oh my gosh, anybody would love to have any of those people on their team.
Yep. Yeah, it makes it hard when you look at the Rays lineup issues, and then you look at the Phillies, and you look at the Astros adding Jose Abreu, and you're thinking, how far away are the Rays from being at that caliber? Like, now you can hang your hat on the Rays roster having elite pitching because they do have one of the best rotations in baseball, but sometimes you do need to score a few runs to win some games. So we'll see how that shapes up.
Well, let's go talk about the Rays and the pitching, because the veteran, he's leaving. We're not having him come back.
You mean KK?
Well, yeah, KK, him is for one, and I was curious if he's going to appear anywhere else. Zunino, I guess he's either released or DFA'd at this point. And,
he's a free agent, so he became a free agent as soon as the World Series was over, and I think they're supposedly in on Sean Murphy and maybe a couple of other free agent catchers. To me, it's one of their weakest positions. I know a lot of people really like Francisco Mejia, but he's a sub-par catcher overall. When you look at both, offensively and defensively, they need to upgrade that. They need a left-handed bat, and they've been rumored to be on Andrew McCutchen. You give him solid leadership, and I think when you look at a lot of players right now in free agency, I think are getting a lot of credit because the shift is going away. So, for example, for him, he's always between 45 and 50% pull side. So if the shift goes away, how much increase is that for his batting average? It's the same thing with, some of the free agents that you're seeing go off the board, even including Judge. Like, how many more hits is he going to get now? Because you can't cheat, and have more guys on the certain side. So
I love it. You say cheat. Okay.
Yeah, it really is cheating. I like it because it's using intelligence. So I understand that aspect of it. And I like front offices being able to use the tools they have, but I also understand it's sort of like the 3-second rule in the key for basketball, right? At some point, you can't just pile guys into the key and say, okay, just stand there. Put your arms up, and it's the same thing in baseball. Like you can put 6 guys in one area and say, oh, force the pitcher to pitch it to that one spot so that's the only place he can really hit it. Well, then you're rigging the system, right? So
yeah,
I get it.
And the thing was, I don't want to go down the shift road, but the one thing I did like about that is seeing players who did adapt, and suddenly maybe they were being shifted on quite a bit. Who's the player, the young guy for the Blue Jays? Bichette. Yeah, Bo Bichette.
Yeah.
And if you can look at numbers, I saw stats, how many times the shift was on top of him like 2 years ago. And then last year's like maybe 5% of the time. They said, it's just not worth it to do it with a player who gets that smart.
Yeah.
But and looking at smart players, I want to just say one more thing about looking at Aaron Judge. Man, I don't think he has Scott Boras as a manager, but they worked pretty good. I heard last night, not so much Scott Boras, but his agent, that if you're looking at Aaron Judge right now, he lives in Tampa these days, which means he's also close to the spring training up there here in Tampa. But the other thing was that I heard he flew out to California and was talking with both the Padres as well as the Giants. I heard one number was as much as $400 million being offered to the man.
Yep.
And, those numbers got back to New York.
Now, let's say he did go to the Padres. How much marketing money does he lose from going from New York to San Diego? Yeah. How much more taxes does he pay in California compared to New York? So when you do the entire math, there's a reason that the teams like the Padres and the Jays and other ones have to pay more, is because they're in competition with states that have no income tax or ones where they have better marketing opportunities, etc. So it's not as simple as looking at the dollar amount. Like I saw one the other day where they were talking about Heaney. Andrew Heaney signed with the Phillies, right? Or with Texas. And the Jays were saying, well, we offered him more money. No, you didn't, because that money is going to taxes. So you offered him less than he was going to get in Texas. So, if you want the player, well, bet even more money. Do the math so that you're actually, offering them that incentive to go north. But I still don't understand what the Jays are doing. They're doing nothing. And they traded away one of their best hitters. Explain that one to me.
I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping there's some big revelations going to come out here. Like I said before, spring training with some of these teams, there's actually going to see somebody good being traded or picked up something, because I'm saying, what are they doing? They're sitting on the sidelines right now. And certainly I see that with the Blue Jays. I was like, I thought they would be making some more moves, but we'll see.
I think they're going to be big on the Japanese imports. They're going to be betting big on those guys. And And they did the same thing similar a few years ago, where they were sitting on the sidelines and then did a couple of moves late in the offseason. I don't think they're afraid to wait till the last minute to make deals happen. They'd rather things be slow and low key, because then they get a better price, I think, most times.
Well, I keep thinking back to a couple of years ago with Bryce Harper signing, and I think it was in the middle of spring training. It's like those things, different ones are going to negotiate differently. So wish them all well. I hope that all fans get to see a good team that they're able to field out there. But let's come back to the Rays for a moment. So what's happening with that pitching? What's that lineup look like now? Has there been any changes?
The pitching wise, I mean, you're talking Zach Eflin, they added, which now looks like a serious bargain compared to the prices that other pitchers are going off the board for. So he's the kind of guy where you look at his lessons learned. He's a little bit like Charlie Morton, who kind of blossomed in his 30s, right?
Right.
And I think Zach Eflin similarly found his curveball, which the Rays really seem to focus on. I think they'll have him use it more than 30% of the time. Before last year, he was around 20%. And you can actually track his starts where he uses the curveball more than 30% of the time, and he dominates lineups. I think he had 12 strikeouts using it more than 30% of the time against the Dodgers of all lineups. So it's one of those things where the potential is there. He's mature, so he's 29. They can add a split finger if they want. They can do certain things with him that they want to do. And I think he's I don't want to say he's healthy, because he's not going to be asked, a little bit like Corey Kluber last year. He's not going to be asked to go 7-8 innings. Right. He's there to pitch 5, maybe 6 innings at a time, and just be there steadily every 5th start to get them through the season, and maybe even every 6th start. Because I think the Rays have the possibility with Yonny Chirinos to actually go 6 long in the rotation for a while, to kind of keep, because McClanahan had some health issues. Glasnow's coming back for his first year. You've got some guys in there that and Patino's probably going to get some starts if he's not traded by then. So you've got these, possibilities of adding guys. And I think you saw that with Houston, how much it benefited them late in the season through the playoffs and into whatever. They had that 6-man rotation rolling, kept Verlander healthy, and everybody was good to go. McCullers. I think the Rays are on that path. I don't know how far they'll take it into the season, but when you look at Eflin, he's the perfect role guy to fit into that. That's in that sweet spot, right? He'll take pressure off guys like Bradley. They won't have to rush him up too fast if everybody's healthy. The only thing that I'll say is that if they lose one of the 2 lefties, so if McClanahan or Springs did go down to injury for whatever reason or wasn't available, their rotation depth on the left side is pretty thin through the top of the system. So that's one area where you might see them, aim to add somebody in AAA that can kind of step in if needed, but it's not really a necessity. I think the pen is a little bit always going to be in flux with the Rays. So you can look at that and see holes, and then all of a sudden guys look elite, right? So, but I think they made some moves last year where they really liked some guys they brought in. So Garrett Clevenger is one example where that opened up the possibility of moving Brooks Raley out. And I really didn't like that Brooks Raley wouldn't get a needle to go across the border. And to me, that's a character issue. And so I like the fact that they moved on from him, and money-wise, they can use that money in better effect later on. So I like team first guys. If you have to make a sacrifice for the team and suck it up and make certain things happen so that you can be a part of that team during an important series against the division rival, then you should be there. I think it's a good move because it saves them money, and I think they'll use it better. I'm hoping they add a bat, like somewhere, somehow. Sean Murphy, Andrew McCutchen, they need a veteran presence. I didn't like the lack of grit in the lineup last year. And I think that's an issue. Once they dealt Joey Wendell, Mike Brasso, all those kinds of guys, the consistency and the grittiness and the late inning runs that they used to get in 2021 weren't there anymore in 2022. And they need to get back to that edge that keeps them going. Now, I don't know how much of that was Brandon Lau not being there much. The roster turnover. Is Isaac Paredes still finding himself a little bit? They have a lot of potential in guys like that. And Curtis Mead is another one that can come in during the season at some point and maybe inject a bit of bat, but his elbow's barking too. The one guy that I'm hoping to give playing time to that I can see really opening up some eyes in 23 is Josh Lowe. I think his performance in July showed us that he can handle the MLB level. They wanted him to get the playing time to send them back to AAA. Was outstanding there for the rest of the year. I expect big things from him. I hope they don't trade him. He has a rocket of an arm. He can handle right field. Even he can play first base eventually if you need him to. And he's a left-handed bat. So he can fill that role. 6'4". I know he can handle first base. So if you want, that first baseman, left-handed power bat, put Josh Lowe there. He'll steal you 30 bases with the 3 inches added on the bases now. So, nothing wrong with that.
No, I'd love to see Josh there, now the G-man's gone. And, as you and I were talking earlier with the Rule 5 draft, which is going on right now, G-man Choi, he was initially signed up with the Orioles. And then who did we say went to? Was the Angels after that? They picked him up in the Rule 5 draft. Right now, I just glanced earlier at what was going on today as they started up. It looked like only about half the teams actually utilizing it. About 11 of them passed, and 4 or 5 of them already had a 40-man roster. They weren't looking to do anything.
The Rays did add somebody, though. They added Kevin Kelly because they traded for him after he was picked up from the Guardians by the Rockies. So they sent some cash over to the Rockies, which is really interesting. He was probably one of the 5 to 6 top guys available in the Rule 5 draft this year, and he's a guy that can step into the pen, in April. And take it to another level because he's that good. So I like that addition a lot. I think it was a solid move, and it had a lot to do with Brooks Raley being shipped out today.
I gotta side with you exactly. When a player has to put the team first, and if there's little things that you don't feel good about, guess what? Step up, do what needs to be done. But anyway, so Brooks Raley, we wish you the best, but I'm glad we've got some changes going on. Well, man, I tell you, Matt, this has just been dumbfounding to me. Like I said, during the winter meetings, all these deals being done, and I'm sure a lot of people are tracking it. You're looking at these large contracts and saying, "Oh my gosh," saying that Mr. Judge has got $360 million. And then I said, well, wait a minute. In sports, it's really not that much. Let's see, if you were playing football, European football, and your name was it Cristiano Ronaldo in $200 million a season for 2.5 seasons. That's a nice little contract, $200 million for a year for a season. Good Lord. So if anybody's out there griping about what these baseball players may be making, say,
well, I think they need to understand that let's say you talk about, Aaron Judge's $360 million, $140 million of that goes to the government. So the government is really winning the most. And then you have the agents, right? And they're going to pay their portion. Like, let's say they get 5%. Well, they're going to pay their portion of that 5% to the government too. And then whoever he pays as an accountant is going to do the same. And then whoever he has as a trainer is going to do the same. So out of all that money, maybe 160 million goes to Judge. And of that is, you're talking about a 9-year period. So each year he gets paid. There's more, there's just an endless amount. The property taxes he's going to pay. Really, at the end of the day, when you die, the government gets all your money. End of story. That's the way it works.
Yep.
It's just zeros and ones in a computer, and it all goes away.
Well, I'm glad that baseball can feed the government, and service all and pave the roads and all of that. But it's been an exciting year. It's been exciting, with off season for this week with their winter meetings. And I can't wait for spring training. Yeah.
Speaking of money, how much money do you think the Rays Stadium is going to cost?
Oh, geez. I mean, initially they were talking $1 billion about 5 years ago, and I guess it'd probably be more like 1.5 with all the land value around here has just gone up through the roof, and construction costs have as well.
Well, there's no land value issue because they own the land already. So that part is okay. I think it's still going to be around 1 billion. And from the designs that I saw, it looks like a pyramid with a translucent roof, right? Like they keep talking about. which it's fine. It's better than the dome in Rogers Center or the one in Texas. They look like warehouses, like you're playing baseball in a warehouse. No, thank you. I would much rather have the light coming in. That part I like. But is it going to get done?
I don't know. I'll tell you. I mean, I am beyond myself with this. You know, we don't even have a spring training facility, at least not the same one that we had last year, because Hurricane Ian came down here and wiped that out. So I cannot imagine spring training inside Tropicana Field, but it could certainly be the case. There's other options they're exploring, but it'll be interesting. I want to see our race thrive, and I hope that the ownership and the politicians can all get together, do the kumbaya, get the dollars, and find a way for us fans to enjoy the Rays for years to come.
As you know, I'm on the outside looking in, like from up north. So what I see from my angle is that St. Petersburg's wallet is open.
Yeah.
And Tampa's is closed. So I think we can sort of rule out Tampa side now and focus on the St. Petersburg side. Because there's that development aspect where they've had successes elsewhere in Atlanta and in San Diego. I think the Rays' train of thought is we have that opportunity in St. Petersburg. Why don't we grab it? And so I think because of that focus and the fact that they have other angles with Al Lang and everything else that they can sort of square away money issues for whatever other reasons. And if they do build up the Trop site and then they build up Al Lang's side for the soccer side of things, then all of a sudden it becomes a mecca of sports, you know, in that area for summer. So I think there's a lot more potential there than people think. And so really, to me, it comes down to the finances. So who's paying what percentage, you know, and who's paying it up front? We already know the naming rights can go to paying for the stadium. They've already said that over and over and over again. So if you want to pay 25 million a year for that over a 10-year span, that's 250 million. So let's say a quarter of the stadium is paid for by naming rights. Now you're talking about 750,000 between the city and the team. Why don't they just split it down the middle? 375 each, end the story. So the Rays pay the 250 plus the 375. That's their portion. The city pays 375. I don't think there's a fan or a citizen out there that would bark at that kind of arrangement if it means growing the area financially and prosperity wise. But it takes mature people to kind of sit in the room and say, you know what, like I want my cake, I want to eat it too. But greed gets the hold of them and they just want every scratching penny that they can grab onto. And it's sickening after a certain point, you know, what it comes to. We all know it's going to get done at some point because they all want to get paid. They all want the money. There isn't an owner out there that wants to lose money, and Tampa Bay just happens to be one of the 12 best TV markets in the country. So, are you really going to back out of there to go where? Like, where are you going? Where are you getting a bigger TV deal? You're not. So you're not going anywhere. Like, stop the whole smoke and pony show. Just, you know, sit down, have a mature conversation, and pay for the stadium.
I'm with you, brother. I'm glad, you know, you've got that vision from a distance, which gives you a little bit more, I think, sharper way to seeing things. Sometimes we're in a room with the door right up in front of our face and we can't find our way to the door.
Yeah.
So we appreciate a perspective from up north there, man. But I hope you're right. I mean, if there is too much money there. And I'll say one last thing about that. People who complain about having fans in the stadium, I think it's nice to have them there to support the team as much as it is for the fans. But as you were saying earlier, this is such a TV market. There is so much as far as how many you look at the viewership of the Rays games. It's phenomenal. But we won't go down that road anymore today. But man, you're right. So I appreciate that. You know, I'm still going to track, see whatever is going to happen with the rest of the winter meetings now. I got my phone here, looking quickly here at Twitter and see what John Heyman has to say right now. If
Heyman, Arson Judge is never going to leave that man. I swear, that was classic.
That poor soul. For those of you who don't know, John Heyman is a sports reporter of sorts.
So I'm reading here Yoshida. So Masataka Yoshida was one of the big outfielders from Japan, signed with the Red Sox for 5 years, $90 million. Now, we all know the successes and the failures of the Japanese imports. Is he going to do great? I don't know. But, if you're Xander Bogaerts, do you look at that as an upgrade? Does it entice you to stick around? Or is that your money that just went to the outfield? Which way does it go?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know.
Stay tuned. Man, it's always a joy talking with you, dude. I appreciate you taking the time tonight to talk with Baseball Biz, and I'm looking forward to spring training. We'll be here before we know it. But thanks for taking the time and sharing your thoughts and insights to the game and all this insanity we call baseball.
No problem at all. It's always a pleasure, and I think that the winter's only getting started. You're going to see some pretty significant trades happen once the winter meetings are in the books. And I think there's a lot of information being shared now that's going to lead to some big things later on. I
want to remind everybody too, Matt Germain, you can follow him on Twitter, presumably still on Twitter.
So far.
Again, you can find him at Matt, MAT_Germain, GERMAIN_. Okay. Thanks again, Matt. And we hope to be talking with all the rest of you soon. Just remember, you can listen to Baseball Biz here. You can listen on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast, we are there. Remember to like us, love us, subscribe to us, follow us. We just love to hear from you. So if you want to send us any notes, go ahead and send it to me, Mark, at The Baseball Biz on Twitter. Special thanks to XTakeRUX for the music Rocking Forward.